If you had just bought a new farm in South Central Kentucky and you had about 1/3 of an acre of already established garden beds, a 60-foot high tunnel, and a small greenhouse, what would you grow? In this video, I'm hoping you guys can help me figure it out. Let's talk about it. Hey friends, my name is Julie and welcome back to my farm. In case you haven't been following along with my last couple of videos, my husband Daryl and I recently moved our small farm from North Carolina to Kentucky. We are actually still in the process of getting everything moved. And on this new farm, we are super psyched that it came with this high tunnel. I've never had a high tunnel before. I've never really grown in one before. I have some friends back in North Carolina that are awesome veggie farmers that grow in these that I am definitely going to be reaching out to, but I am super excited for the potential that that holds. And then all around this high tunnel, there's this weed fabric laid down. Looks like over about 1/3 of an acre. So it goes all along both sides of the high tunnel. And then quite a bit wider over there. I think there's 3 or 4 strips of it over there, and I think they're 6 feet wide. So that bed is probably 18 feet wide, and then it extends past the high tunnel. So that's pretty long, maybe 100 feet. So that is quite a bit of space. And then you can't see it under the weeds, but there's more fabric here. And then where the chickens are scratching around, this all has weed fabric. Obviously, the weeds have conquered it. It is almost completely obscuring the fabric. The high tunnel itself had weed fabric laid down in it. So one of the first decisions that I needed to make about this new space was whether I was going to keep this weed fabric. And I actually reached out to a trusted Facebook group that I've been a part of for a long time that has a lot of great gardening advice. And the advice was pretty much split as whether or not to rip it out or leave it. And so we decided right away that we needed to rip it out of the high tunnel because I am housing my chickens in there and I want them to be able to actually make contact with the dirt and scratch and fertilize with their manure. I didn't want a bunch of plastic coming between the chickens and the soil. And from experience, I know that if you just leave plastic, it just degrades and it turns into little bits that you will never get out of the dirt. And I didn't want to see that happen in there. So we ripped it out of there, and I was really glad that we did because I have no idea how old this is. That's the other thing. Like, I know this stuff, if it's cared for, can last for 4 or 5 years, but I don't know. What do you guys think? I don't know how well it's been cared for. Some of it looks okay, but I am worried we're at that point where it is just going to start to deteriorate and become more and more difficult to pick up. So what I am thinking right now is that I'm going to pick up some of it, probably on this side. I can see that there are quite a few big rocks coming through. So I would like to pick up the weed fabric. I'd like to till this once the tractor gets here, and I'd like to rock pick it and get at least the big ones out of here because I don't want to be crawling around on my knees trying to enjoy my garden and getting poked in the knee with a rock. And I want to break up some of the compaction in this soil. I want to be able to introduce some more organic matter to it, and the rocks are just going to be in the way. Now I'm probably going to collect a bunch of those rocks because I would like to start making some permanent herb gardens and flower beds. And I think lining beds with rocks, especially some of these pretty red rocks that we've got here, looks really cool. But over here, potentially, this fabric, although it is quite covered with weeds, looks like it's in a little better shape to me. And it looks like it's actually a little different brand, potentially. So I might try to plant into this, if it's not too much of a pain, to just pull up the weeds without pulling the fabric up too. If the fabric just starts to come up, it's all coming up. And then I can do kind of a side-by-side comparison of which I like planting in better and which is easier for weed control, because that is kind of the point. My other problem with the weed fabric is that if you want to apply compost directly to the soil or any kind of amendment, you've got to pull it up. And it is water permeable, but you're not going to get the kind of rain saturation that you would if it was just bare ground or mulch. But yeah, tell me what you guys would do in the comments. Would you leave it? Would you pull it up? Would you want to wait and see for one season, how you like it? And what is your experience with wheat fabric? Because I've used it once before and I didn't love it, but I am definitely open to other points of view on that. The next bunch of decisions that I need to make are, what am I gonna grow? I know that a lot of people jump on seed catalogs as early as like January and start ordering. And I know things like tomatoes and peppers. Peppers are my favorite thing to grow. You really need to start those seeds as early as like January or February. And seeing as it's already mid-December, I need to get on it. So I've been trying to make a list of things that Daryl and I both really like to eat. We're going to start with that. And then I've kind of got to decide which of those things are most feasible to grow here, easiest to grow. Then I've got to look into which varieties of those things are suitable for this climate. I'm in zone 7A now, which is quite a bit different. I was in 8B back in North Carolina, so our growing season was quite a bit longer. And of course, I think our high temperatures were a lot higher. So I'll be a little more limited on that side of things, but I can do more cold weather crops here. Besides the seasonal garden, I'm also thinking a lot about perennials. That's something that I want to get as big a head start on as I can. So we've already got the apple trees in. I picked 8 varieties, honestly, that fit my zone and that were on sale with Stark Brothers. So I got a good deal on all of these, but there are a lot more fruit trees I want to put in. I want to put in peaches, plums, pears, figs. We'll see. And then I also want a lot of perennial herbs. I want some berries. So I think this would be a good place for like elderberries back here with the apple orchard. This ugly raised bed made me kind of angry at first because it's right in the middle of where I want to plant my trees. But then I thought maybe that could be my asparagus bed. It needs a lot of work, but if anybody has experience, advice, anything you can tell me about growing asparagus, where to get crowns, best time to put them in, best way to put them in, or refer me to a video or an educator that could teach me how to do that, that would be fantastic, because I would really, really like to get some asparagus in. So that's a priority. I've got most of this space available for orchard and perennial herbs. And then this south-facing wall of the house is a little bit of a warm microclimate. So I'm gonna really think about what I'm gonna put there. Toying with the idea of getting some dwarf citrus, maybe a dwarf Meyer lemon tree, putting it in a big pot on wheels, keeping it here during the summer, and then in the high tunnel in the winter. But that seems a little advanced for someone that's just starting their fruit orchard. I might put my blueberry containers here initially, because that is definitely something that I'm going to grow in containers because they need such acidic soil, which I do not have here. And then this yard around the house, this like little dog yard, has this pretty good woven wire fence on it, and I'm going to use that as my raspberry trellis. So that this whole sort of south-facing side of that fence I'm going to line with raspberries. And then I'm going to hold off planting any blackberries because we have a ton of wild blackberries around. And I know they're small and they're more tart. They're not as great as like the big fat thornless varieties that you can cultivate. And I will probably do some of those in the future. But I think we're going to have plenty of wild blackberries to start with. I was a little bummed I didn't get my garlic in this fall. I think it's a little bit too late, especially since it's been getting really cold here. We've already had 5 snows and it's getting in the 20s almost every night. So it's below freezing, which is super fun. Especially as you're just figuring things out. We don't have great systems. I haven't lived in a cold climate in like longer than that, because I lived in the San Diego area before I lived in North Carolina. So yeah, long time since I've lived in a place that has real winter, that snows on a regular basis. So that's something I gotta get used to and really decide if I want to winter garden or if it's something that I just want to shut down during that time. Anyway, those are decisions for next year. What I need to think about right now is spring. So again, guys, please in the comments, give me your list of your favorite things to grow. Bonus points if you're in zone 7, 8-ish here, what kind of things that you can grow well. I've also got some pretty heavy clay soil. So if you've got any advice for dealing with that, I got really lucky again in North Carolina. Our soil was kind of a sandy loam, a little bit of clay, but nothing like this. This is like the heavy red clay. I think water retention is not going to be a problem, but I think we're going to be making and adding a lot of compost over the next couple seasons, which is a good thing we have a lot of animals because that's the best way I know to make compost. So the goats are on top of that. They're in the barn. We're doing a deep litter bedding system for the winter in there with them. So there'll be tons to pull out of there in the spring. Same thing, the chickens, there's probably going to be more than enough in this high tunnel. They've also, as you can see, have access to the whole garden area. So they're fertilizing right now. I've been trying to think about what I'm going to do with these pig areas. I'm going to be moving the pigs, probably get 3 or 4 good size moves along this area where I can still give them some of these trees, some of these cedar trees back here for shelter. And this is kind of a unused area right now, and let them kind of gently till it up. They've been here 2 weeks now and they're really not tearing it up too bad yet, but I would like to move them and seed behind them. So I'm trying to decide what I'm going to seed in these areas, whether I'm just going to try some winter pasture grass, probably annual ryegrass if I was going to do that, or maybe like some turnips or storage beets, something that might grow this time of year. But I'm also planning to go meet with my local agricultural extension agent, and hopefully he'll be able to shed some light on that sort of thing, what kind of forage crops or grasses I can grow this type of year behind these piggies. And then as far as the main like 10 acres of pasture, I've been thinking a lot about that too, what I want to grow there, because right now it's mostly Johnson grass, fescue, and clover, which is fine for cattle. The goats do okay on it, but it's not ideal for goats. And I really had to spend some time kind of seriously thinking about what I wanted to do here, whether it made more sense to pare down the goats and switch to more of a grazing animal, cows or sheep, that would do well on this kind of pasture. And that is probably the more ecologically responsible thing to do, maybe. I don't know. But we went to all the trouble to get these goats here. Daryl and I are both in love with the goats. We're committed to the goats. All our immediate future business plans here revolve around the goats. So I think we're pretty locked in. I think neither of us has the desire to move away from raising the goats. So with that part decided, I think the next step would be to try and seed these pastures with something that is more appropriate for goat forage. And what I'd really like to grow is basically the type of hay that I ended up putting them on here, a mix of alfalfa and orchard grass. We do have a small tractor, but we don't really have the implements to till and seed or drill seed pastures this large. It would take a long time with our little tractor and tiller. And actually the best luck I've ever had with seeding pastures is seeding behind chickens, behind chicken tractors. That will be one of the priorities for Daryl when he has some time, is to get a mobile chicken coop built for these chickens to go into as soon as it's warm enough, basically as soon as the nights are consistently above freezing. And we'll put them out on this pasture and we'll move them 2 or 3 times a day. And we will just hand broadcast seed behind them in their manure. I mean, we'll definitely use the tractor to mow the grass down for them so that they have better access to the soil and they can really scratch in there and help the seeds make good contact with the dirt. And then we'll either water behind them or we'll just do it, on days that it's expected to rain. But we're just, I think, going to use the slow and steady method. That'll help kind of spread out this cost of the seed. I understand alfalfa seed can be quite expensive. Also, alfalfa is a perennial that takes about 4 months to really get established. So you can't really allow any animals to graze on that area after you've seeded it. So we're gonna have to design a tractor that is suitable to keep these laying hens in all the time. I'm not gonna be able to let them out while we're doing that, but we have done that in the past and they've done just fine. You just need a spacious coop with a lot of nest boxes and a lot of roosts. And you need to move it frequently. And then of course we won't be able to let the goats graze. So it'll probably be, I'm thinking probably a whole spring and summer to seed one side of the pasture. And then the following spring, we'll probably put the chickens over here and seed this side, unless we want to build a couple of coops and get a lot more hens, maybe some meat birds. But for now, we're just going to work with the chickens that I have. I've got a little over 100 laying hens and a couple roosters. So that's a good number of birds to be able to truck along in a big tractor and seed these pastures with. So fingers crossed that plan works. Of course, I will let you guys know as things change, because I do like to change my mind pretty frequently. But I just wanted to share with you guys kind of what we're thinking for the future here. And I would really, really love to get your thoughts on especially the garden area. It's been a while since I've had a really nice big garden area to play with, and I'm very excited about it. So the last couple years I've had just kind of my pepper garden, and I've dabbled here and there with other things. But to really have the space to grow a significant amount of our food and make that a higher priority as we kind of organize our new farm business and establish our new routines here on the Kentucky farm, I think gardening is going to be a much bigger part of that. And I know a lot of you have a lot more expertise than I do. So I would absolutely love to hear from you. Any advice you have, especially if you know good resources for gardening in this area. If you know YouTube channels that garden in Kentucky that I could follow, I would absolutely love that. That sound you guys probably keep hearing in the background are my baby bucks crying for their dinner. It's a little bit early, but they're good boys. So I'm gonna sign off here. Go ahead and feed these guys. And as always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye guys.